keep going around. And we have the power to take it back, each one of us. And today's world, people are really hurting. They're hurting for acceptance. They're hurting for love, compassion, and they're not getting it outside of YouTube. So they come to YouTube looking for a savior, so to speak. That's why I quit making videos and deleted all my content. Because it was almost like nobody was listening. Nobody had the vision that I did.
You're a Harry fucking Potter.
Retorted beyond belief.
And a lot of people are looking for a savior.
Today I'm going to lay out the entire story of Michael Scott Briggs, not as some random toxic high school friend, but as a deliberately planted long-term handler who was assigned to me when I was 15 years old and ran a coordinated operation on me for over 11 years. This wasn't normal teenage drama. This was a calculated containment and destabilization program that used alcohol, physical abuse, trauma bonding, isolation, and perfect routing to the next layer of the network. I'm going to walk you through every phase with the facts exactly as they happened. So this was the first phase, the infiltration, sophomore to senior year, roughly 2005 to 2008. So I met Mike in biology class when I was a sophomore, and he was openly hostile toward me, classic bully behavior. Then at the beginning of senior year in fall 2007, he did a complete 180 degrees out of nowhere. He started love bombing me and inviting me to the YMCA to work out, and started acting friendly, and he started telling me he'd introduce me to his friend group and take me to house parties and stuff like this. So right away he pushed alcohol hard. One of the first things I remember is supplying booze from my parents' house for him and his best friend Brad, and they promised to pick me up for a party after pre-gaming, and they never came back. They just left me stranded at home all night. Brad, by the way, openly called me the biggest living sack of fucking shit that ever existed, and said I'd never amount to anything. And this was right in the study hall class when Mike was right there, sitting right next to him. So pretty much that made me break down in tears, right? Just more psychological abuse, and made me feel confused and depressed. So, at the same time, they started the, back road ritual where they would drink a bunch, get drunk, and drive over 100 miles per hour, basically, on these narrow, dangerous horse farm roads around Parker's Mill and Military Pike. Roads that already had crosses on the side marking people who had died there. So Mike, Dallas, and the crew treated it like it was just fun. Mike even casually mentioned the roads were haunted and that our parents know something about those back roads, and they had basically zero normal human fear regarding these high risk situations. So, phase two now, this was the escalation and trauma bonding, basically 2008 to 2010. So once we graduated, the abuse got physical and repeated. So he crashed through a fence at high speed with me in the car. He also, another time, ran a red light at 50 to 60 miles per hour and T-boned another car, and airbags were deployed. Easily could have died in that situation. So he punched me in the face at a hotel room party, left me bleeding and crying, and then the very next day took me to the 2008 Cincinnati Open tennis final that was played between Novak Djokovic and Andy Murray, and it was supposed to be this big apology, and we had luxury seats, and he acted like nothing happened, and it was just like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, this is my apology. Classic trauma bonding. So also in the woods behind Palomar Center in around May 2008, he punched me in the gut/kidney area so hard I collapsed to the ground and genuinely thought I was dying. He threw me down a full flight of dormitory stairs and I got a concussion, blacked out for over an hour. That was another incident where I believe he was trying to probably take me out through plausible deniability or something. And yeah, another time he put his cigarette out on my chest and the embers rolled down my navel and scarred me. That was at another one of these house parties. And while I was crying at the bottom of the stairs after the burn, he threw a giant piece of glass down towards my throat/head area, which missed by about a foot or so. So after every violent incident, he'd flip to the, I just, see you as a little brother, and I'm on and the fake apology line, and like, he would wrestle me to the ground too often and say, "Oh, I just see you as a little brother," or after some traumatic event, he'd take me somewhere fun or whatever, like that Cincinnati Open final. So it's like classic trauma bonding. And he constantly reminded me often, that without him, he said, without me, you would be nothing. You had no friends before I let you into the group, pretty much. And so the last phase is the Phoenix convergence, basically 2009 to 2014. So right after high school, Mike moved to Chandler, Arizona, right in the Phoenix metro area, and at the exact same time, my earlier golf friend from age 14, Hidemichi Suzuki, moved to Gilbert, Arizona, also Phoenix metro. I ended up visiting both of them in the city during the same years. Mike lived in a big house with a pool, drove a BMW, and claimed his dad's barcoding business paid for everything, and that he just clicked a mouse and took a few calls. No public records of any such business exist. He told me all this nonsense about how his dad was an entrepreneur and had this giant multi-million-dollar barcoding business that had contracts to the public school area in Phoenix and beyond. It's just ridiculous. So more network psyop fakery. So the last phase 4 of blood over intent routing and ghosts, 2017 to early 2018. So in like May, June time period, 2017, Mike did the blood over intent ritual with me and started making videos under the name Free Mankind. Then in spring 2018, right as I started exposing the lies of the blood over intent community more thoroughly, like they lied about going to the North Pole and things like this, and I exposed their lies, basically. After that, he suddenly introduced me to Brett Loven, Creator 13, Spirit Walker 77, and he was telling me Brett was supporting my videos and also exposing the cult. So the second I started talking about shapeshifters and deeper supernatural topics, Mike completely ghosted me, handoff complete pretty much at that time. So, later records show he moved from Chandler, Arizona to Utah, the same state where Aiden's booking data is in Cache County, CC 33. And also Jeff Snyder, too, is based in Utah. So the highest level analysis, Michael Scott Briggs was a long-term early insertion handler whose job was to prevent me from having any healthy social development starting at around age 15, to keep me chemically destabilized with alcohol and physically endangered through repeated high-risk situations, to fracture me psychologically with abuse mixed with trauma bonding and superiority signaling, without, like the whole thing where he said, without me you'd be nothing, to act as a gatekeeper and router, delivering me to the next node, Brett Loven, Mario, etc. The moment I started breaking out of the current layer, then vanishing. So his complete lack of normal human fear, driving drunk and drinking at 100 miles per hour plus on death roads, multiple near fatal car crashes, extreme physical violence, and zero remorse, combined with the unverifiable rich backstory and the perfect geographic routing through Phoenix and later Utah, shows he was operating on a higher level, on a different level. He wasn't my friend, he was assigned to me. The operation ran like clockwork for over 11 years and fits perfectly into the same coordinated network I've been exposing for years. Um, yeah, the same machine that later brought in Adam, Angelo, Mario, Aiden, and the whole Red Triangle Psyop crew. So the Phoenix thread is especially glaring. Multiple handlers planted in Phoenix, Arizona, right after high school, and now the literal Phoenix airfield in Antarctica acting as the gatekeeper for my sovereign expedition. That's not coincidence, that's architecture. Michael Scott Briggs was one of the earliest and longest running handlers in my timeline, and now the full pattern has been documented on the public record. So that's the truth, no more, no less. And I also wanted to note that even back in 2007, somehow Michael was able to procure blocks of substances like, uh, you know, weed and stuff like that when we were only 17. I mean, I never took part in that at the time, but somehow him and his strange friend network had access to these substances, which further supports the trafficking connections and trafficking optics like Grow Team 6 and the other trafficking optics of this satanic network.